for the champions to learn more about a variety of national resources. And so Rebecca Hartman-Baker is kind enough to offer us an overview of NERSC. So thank you so much, Rebecca, and I'll let you go ahead and start.
All right.
And Marisa is going to press record, I think.
Yeah. Okay, has record been pressed?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Dana, so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm really excited to give you an overview of NERSC and what we do. So in this beautiful picture here, this is our building. It was just built in 2015. You can see the sunset over there across the San Francisco Bay. We're in the East Bay of the San Francisco area. That bridge that you can probably see there is the Bay Bridge, and we actually have a view inside the building of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I was originally worried when we moved into this building that I would do nothing but stare out the window all day. But so far that hasn't happened, and so we're still able to do pretty productive work despite our $1 million view. So the agenda here, we're just gonna have a little introduction to NERSC, talk about some of our hardware and our software, how to interact with NERSC, our user responsibilities and expectation. A lot of that stuff's probably not much different than any other site that you're familiar with. And then how to get an allocation at NERSC. I saved the best for last so that you have to listen to me the whole time. Okay, so NERSC stands for National Energy Research Scientific Computing Center. So we were established in 1974 as the first unclassified supercomputer center. Originally, the mission was to enable computational science for magnetically controlled plasma experiments. So we've grown out a little bit from there. Today's mission is to accelerate scientific discovery at the Department of Energy Office of Science through high-performance computing and extreme data analysis. So NERSC is the national user facility for the Department of Energy Office of Science. We have a very diverse workload. We have actually closer to 7,000 users now, 800 projects. We have more than 600 codes running, hundreds of users active every day. Our allocations are primarily controlled by the Department of Energy. So 80% of our production time goes to something called ERCAP, which is like energy, I knew I should have tried to go over this before. Energy Research Computing Allocation Process, or something like that, program. So we give awards that range anywhere from about 10,000 to 10 million CPU hours. It's proposal-based and it's chosen by DOE program managers. So NERSC doesn't actually, we don't actually control who our users are. We just kind of get our users from DOE. 10% goes to the DOE Oscar Leadership Computing Challenge. And so if you're not familiar with DOE speak, Oscar is Advanced Strategic Computing. I think they're going to take away my DOE badge because I can't remember these things. But that's the point is that it's Advanced Computing Challenge. And then 10% we have in the NERSC reserve, like our director's share. It's Advanced Scientific Computing Research is what OSCAR stands for. I should have just waited till this next slide. Okay, so in 2015, this is kind of how our time got broke down. So you can see there are different offices in DOE. So for example, biological and environmental research, or basic energy sciences, fusion, high energy physics, various things. And so each of them is allocated a chunk of this total time. And then those offices themselves will then allocate time to their users. So we have over 600 codes that are run at NERSC that we know about. So 10 codes make up about half of our workload, and then another 15, so for a total of 25, make about 2/3 of our workload. You can see the different ones here. There's quite a few different codes that we have to support with a lot of different needs. So that can make it a bit of a challenge. So NERSC is really well known for science, and science is really the thing that drives us all. It's what we care about. So in 2015, we had more than 2,000 refereed publications, including a lot of covers, journal covers. So whenever we have a user who has a journal cover, we like it if they send it in to us so we can display it on our website and show off. So our users all together, more than 2,000 publications a year. We like for them to acknowledge us. We also have to send science highlights to the Department of Energy every quarter. And so we like it when our users send us links to their publications that use NERSC resources. You scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours. The more that people use NERSC, the bigger and better machines that we can get. So here's sort of a map of all of our systems. So we always have at least 2 big systems at a time. So right now we have Edison and Cori. So Edison, a little bit older machine. It is a Cray XC30, and it has 5,576 nodes. And it just has regular CPUs in it. They are just Intel Sandy Bridge, or maybe they're Ivy Bridge. Boy, I'm not doing well this morning. And it's afternoon, and I just said morning, so that shows you how badly I'm doing. Okay, so it's Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge or something like that. And so altogether, it can do 2.57 petaflops peak performance. So it's a pretty good, pretty steady machine that we've had for quite a while at this point. Our newest machine is called Cori. Cori is a Cray XC40, so a little bit more advanced than Edison, but not a lot. And it has 2 sort of partitions in it. So it's got some Haswell nodes. So your nodes with just regular old CPUs, Haswell CPUs, so the next generation up from Edison. And then it has, the other part of it has these Knights Landing K&L Xeon Phi, self-hosted Xeon Phis in those nodes. And another unique thing is that Cori has what we call a burst buffer. So that's a place where you can get really, really super fast I/O performance. Okay. We also have some global file systems, and then we are connected into ESNet, so the Energy Sciences Network. And so that has connections going all across the United States and actually over to CERN in Europe. So Edison is a really large, stable machine. We're kind of giving a priority boost to large jobs that run on that, but that's going away. And it's cheaper to run on Edison because it's not quite as fast as Cori. Cori has, like I said, 2 types of nodes. It's got the Haswell nodes and the K&L nodes. The Haswell nodes are great for throughput. We primarily want that to be used as sort of a data analysis machine. So it kind of has longer wall time limits for smaller jobs, whereas on Edison we have shorter wall time limits for smaller jobs. And then the K&L nodes, they're available to all users. So we had a program called NESAP, which was sort of basically a code porting and preparation to go onto these K&L nodes because they do have this novel architecture. They've got the many cores. So they've got 68 cores per node versus the Haswell has 32. So that's a big difference. They also don't have as much memory per core, and the memory architecture is quite a bit different. So we had some early users who worked with us to port their codes to the K&L, and so we gave them more access at first, and then it goes into production on July 1st. So then everyone will have access to the KNL nodes at that point. So we also have some big file systems. So we've got our 2 global file systems, home and project. We have some local file systems, Scratch and burst buffer. And then we have our long-term storage in HPSS. And that is a picture of HPSS. So our home system is kind of your home directory. It's a perfect place for small storage. Perfect place for storing your data like your source code or your shell scripts. We've got project, which is more of a collaborative space, and it's really perfect for sharing your data within your research group. Scratch, we have Scratch systems attached to every machine. It's a large temporary storage. So Corey has a really big Scratch system, and so we've cross-mounted it on Edison. And these are really optimized for reading and writing. So it's perfect for staging and performing your computations. And then we've got the burst buffer, which, as I said, is like a really fast memory. So it has a high performance SSD behind it. And it's great for codes that are really constrained by their I/O. And something I realized in the middle of this that I forgot to mention is how we name our machines. So you see we've got Edison, and probably most people have heard of Thomas Edison. So we name our machines after scientists. And so Corey is named after a scientist called Gertie Corey, and she was actually the first American woman to win a Nobel Prize in science. So she won the Nobel Prize in medicine, and it was for the Corey cycle, which is a metabolic cycle of some sort. Okay, so then we've got HPSS, and that's our high performance storage system. This is for archival storage. This is perfect for putting infrequently accessed data, but data that you still need to keep into it. So that's kind of what we have going on there in terms of our resources. Now, software-wise, our machines are both Cray supercomputers, and so their operating system is just a version of Linux. So it's very similar to, if anybody has ever used Blue Waters, same sort of machine, only newer. We have compilers on the machines. There's actually 3 different compiler environments that you can select from on both the machines. We have a lot of libraries on the machines. Many of them are provided by Cray or Intel. Then others that we actually compile ourselves. And then we also have quite a few applications that we compile and support for our users. So a big area is chemistry and materials. So you can just see, here's a sampling of some of the chemistry and materials applications that we provide for users. So if you were paying attention back at the beginning there, our number one code that runs on our machines in terms of wall time is VASP. And so we provide VASP for our users so that they can have the optimized version of it. But we provide a lot of these other ones as well. So we're going to move on to interacting with NERSC. So we've got our consultant team, we've got operations, and our NERSC user group. So we've got our consulting team, which is composed of people from 3 different groups. Again, we're big on acronyms in Department of Energy. So UEG is User Engagement Group. That's my group. APG is Application Performance Group, and that's sort of a peer group to mine. And then the third one down there is DSEG, that's Data Science Engagement Group. So they engage more with users who are more like data users who are wanting to process data from large experiments and things like that. So we're the first people that you interact with when you submit a ticket or you call or whatever. We handled about 8,000 tickets last year. So we are kind of busy. So we provide a reply within 4 business hours, and we'll help people resolve their problems. We try to accommodate needs that don't fit within our operating structure. We do our best to accommodate them. We can't always, and of course, we're always open for feedback. So of course, this applies to everywhere. Help us help you. Like, so if you become a user and you want to, if you have an issue and you want to send in a ticket, help us by providing specifics about what's going on. So in addition, we have our operations staff. So our consulting staff, consulting help desk is open during Pacific time business hours. So we're open from 8 to 5. But operations is on staff on site every day of the year, even Christmas. And they supervise the operation of the machine room. And they'll answer the phone. If you call, they answer the phone and they forward it to us during the business hours, or they can answer some questions. They're really useful people, really smart. They know about the health of the machines and they can help you with some simple tasks, but not with everything. So we also have an active community of NERSC users called the NERSC User Group, and they are a great source of advice and feedback for us. They have an executive committee, and we also have monthly teleconferences hosted by NERSC for the NERSC User Group. So this next one is really for everyone. This applies to every center, I'm sure, but we like it when people are really nice to their neighbors. They use their allocation wisely, don't use it all up on the first day. They use the right resource for their job and their data. They back stuff up. They acknowledge NERSC in their papers. We really love that. And they pay attention to security and they don't share accounts. We do have some problems with that sometimes, and that goes against our user terms of use. So we ask people not to do that. Okay, so now for what you've all been waiting for, how to get an allocation at NERSC. Okay, so first thing is eligibility. So your work has to fall within the Department of Energy program missions. Now, that mission is actually wider than you might at first believe. It says Department of Energy, and there's some people who actually don't know what the Department of Energy does. But luckily, it's actually a very broad mission. So it's anything that's really pertaining to energy, and even that is really wide. So for example, Department of Energy is actually really, really interested in astrophysics. And you may be like, well, why would the Department of Energy care about astrophysics? Well, the reason is because, for example, the same processes that go into the formation of galaxies and stars and things like that are the same processes that could eventually be exploited for us to be able to have fusion energy. So that's one example. Your research doesn't have to be funded by the Department of Energy, but it certainly never hurts for it to be funded by DOE. But as long as it falls into that mission, you still have a shot. Now, all the program managers for the different programs, they choose who to give out their allocation to differently because they all have different priorities. So some of them, they really will only give out allocations to people who they are funding, but others, they'll give it out to anyone who's doing the same type of thing that falls within their mission. Now, another concern that people have a lot of times is nationality. So, I mean, one thing that is true is that the Department of Energy oversees the nuclear stockpile. So there are some Department of Energy sites, such as Los Alamos or Sandia, where if you're not a U.S. citizen, you can't even step foot in there in certain places, or you can't get on their computers, especially if you're from a country that for lack of a better way of saying it, that the United States government doesn't like. However, at NERSC, we are an open science facility. Lawrence Berkeley Lab, which is where we're at, is very open science, so we don't have the same sort of restrictions that some of those other sites do. So actually, we can have users who are of nationalities that the US government isn't very fond of, but there are certain restrictions, like you must, like for example, if you're an Iranian national, you can use our supercomputers, but you can't use them while you're in Iran, if that makes sense. It's kind of strange, but that's one of the restrictions. So the point is, though, that generally, if you're an Iranian national and you are working at a United States university, then you can use our computers as long as you don't use them while you've gone home for a visit or something like that. Okay, so we have different types of allocations. So ERCAP, like I said, is our main allocation. It's 80% of all of our CPU hours are allocated in this way. So there are two things. So you can apply year-round to get an allocation at NERSC. Our main allocation cycle, the deadline is in August, and the duration of the allocation is 1 year, from January to January. So it's like the second Tuesday in January or something like that is the turnover day. So for those allocations, if you want to get in and get them, you need to apply before August. And I'm going to talk more. I have more slides about this. You can always get an ERCAP allocation off cycle for the remainder of the calendar year. Like if you got really excited today and decided you wanted to apply tomorrow, you could certainly do that. And you could get an allocation for the remainder of the calendar year. And the deadline for that is just anytime before November for this calendar year. Then there's the ALCC, which I said was the Oscar Leadership Computing Challenge. So their year is from July 1st to June 30th. And so their deadline is in February. And then you can always get a startup or an education account, and those last for 18 months, and there's actually kind of no deadline. You can get those at any time. Okay, so like I said, ERCAP is our main allocations, and this is decided by the DOE program manager, so we don't decide it. So if you want to get a large allocation, they get awarded in November for the following year, but your application is due in August, mid-August, I believe, for consideration in this batch. So the applications are open throughout the rest of the year for the remainder of the calendar year, but if you try for an off-cycle allocation, it's awarded from the program manager's reserve, so generally it's going to be smaller. So for best results, you want to get into this cycle where you submit your application in August and then get an allocation for the next year. Okay, so then ALCC is our next one. So that is 10% of NERSC time goes to ALCC. It's awarded by the DOE Oscar office. So again, not NERSC, we don't award it. The emphasis there is on high risk, high payoff simulations. And actually ALCC will award time at 2 other facilities in addition to NERSC. So they'll award time at the Oak Ridge Leadership Computing Facility and the Argonne Leadership Computing Facility. And the deadline there is February. And then there's the startup allocations. These are awarded by us, by NERSC. There's a limit of 50,000 NERSC hours. That's not actually a lot. These are valid for 18 months. And then once you're done with your startup, you've exhausted it, the next step is a production ERCAP allocation. Like you can't get 2 startups for the same thing. So anyway, that's it. So now how do we apply? Okay, ALCF, you apply through DOE. It's a completely different website. Everything else, you apply through the NERSC ERCAP system. Now, you see my big red note there at the top. We are in the process of developing a new ERCAP application system. So these directions are still valid for another maybe 2 or 3 months. But in time for the ERCAP season, then we'll have this new application form, and so things will be a little different. But for now, what you need to do is, if you're a brand new user, you've never used NERSC before, you don't have even an expired account, you request a NIM account. NIM stands for NERSC Information Management System. So you request an account via the ERCAP Access Request Form, and then you sign and submit the appropriate use policy form, and then you fill out the application. Now, if you're already a NERSC user, but maybe you're not a PI yet, but you're interested in becoming one, you just got to go into NIM and fill out the application. So it's pretty simple. So here are some links that could be handy for you. So in particular, this lower bullets here, we've got the NERSC Allocations info. That kind of gives you like an overview of the whole process, how to apply for your first allocation, and then the actual request form, okay? And then also, if you're just interested in checking out NERSC and what we do and what we've got, our website is just nersc.gov. We've got info for users. We've got info about our computational systems, Corey and Edison. Those are all available on our website, and much, much more. So that's all I've got. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
So everybody feel free to unmute and ask away. I have one to start.
Sure.
So for allocations, do you happen to know how successful allocation requests are? Does it just depend on?
Yeah, that depends on the office. Yeah. So I know that we are very oversubscribed. I mean, like, we've got 2 or 3 times the amount of requests than we can actually accommodate. So different program managers handle that in different ways. Some of them will just give everybody a reduced allocation, and others will just only accept a few projects. So it really just depends on which program.
Is there a page that lists more details about the kinds of programs and science? So like if, yeah.
Yeah, so if you go to here, this overview page, I think it tells you more info about the programs. Yeah. So I can go there and see if this even works. Yeah, so here we go. So this page right here, allocations, overview, and eligibility. So it tells you basically everything I already said.
Yeah.
And then eligibility. Okay, then here we go for the missions. So we've got the different offices' missions, and so that can help people to understand how they fit into that mission.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? I just have answered everyone's questions so well they don't even have to ask.
I have a question. Is export controlled software permitted on NERSC?
Oh, that's a really good question. We don't really like to deal with export control. So I think my answer is it depends, but generally we don't like that, so we kind of avoid that. It's probably more suitable for one of the leadership computing facilities where they have more security safeguards. Any other questions?
So I found it really interesting that the short jobs with long wall times is something that happens because we're so used to some of the bigger machines disliking that. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, so NERSC, I mean, because we are the mission facility, we really have to accommodate all the users. So like at Oak Ridge or at Argonne, they kind of get to pick their own users, but we don't pick. So it's what people need. But on the other hand, I think that makes us really a good place to do a lot of really interesting science. And I'd say, I don't want to be mean to the other centers, but I'd say we're at least 5 years ahead of them in terms of our data capabilities because of that, because we're willing to work with people and just get the science done. So I think we were doing data before data was the new hotness.
That should be your tagline.
We're like the hipsters. We were doing it before it was cool or whatever. Yeah. Any other questions?
Does anybody on the call have any researchers using DOE resources? Or using them themselves? Or maybe
I think
those
I've got a couple at possibly Oak Ridge right now. So, but I do have one that's on their way from Zurich to start this fall. That's going to be looking for a large type. She's run at scale on Titan and is looking to expand her development base. So it looks like the KNLs on Cori may be ideal.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Yeah, that would be great. So our theoretical peak anyway on Cori is higher than Titan, but I don't think we've successfully made our actual run higher than Titan. So we're number 5 on the top 500 list. So Titan is still one above us. But this is really cool new technology. So I'm really excited about the KNL nodes. And so, yeah, please send your user on over our direction. You can always send an email to, I didn't put this in here, I should have. We can always send an email to the consultants at consult@nersc.gov. And, just with a general query or really any questions that you might have.
So are the KNL nodes also oversubscribed?
Yeah, actually, we are actually really surprised at how busy they are. Yeah, we have a very long queue wait time on them that we weren't quite expecting already. And we haven't even let everyone on yet. So
cool.
Yeah, so it's really awesome.
Any other questions? Anybody?
It was a great presentation. We really appreciate it. I always like seeing what the DOE is doing with the resources and advancing the mission.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. This is great. I've learned a lot today.
Oh, good.
And I really appreciate it.
Good. Well, I'll share these slides with you, Dana, and then
we can post them on our wiki.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Rebecca.
All right.